click, 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 click. He's not doing anything. He's just kind of like selecting drones, looking back over there, looking, clicking, clicking, setting rally points, moving drones, building a queen. Oh my god. So you can see that really 8 p.m. doesn't mean all that much except in big battles and intense micro situations. That's a moment when macro or when micro can get the best of you and you really like you're paying close attention. That's when it really does matter what 8 p.m. you have, because it matters how much actual like stuff you can do while microing, and that's really like hard to pull off. We see Goody doing some great work with this Reaper, but if we look at his APM, it's only in the normal person range, and so therefore you'll notice he's not actually building that much while his Reaper's harassing. If that bunker had gone up, it would have been devastating, but still this Reaper can do a lot of damage. So this Reaper already has 8 kills, 9 kills. A few of those are drones, some are zerglings. Let's see, is Goody sending out a unit to come back and... Nope, he's not. He's putting down an expansion. Is that a factory? Nope, it's a command center. He has... he doesn't even have a second gas yet. He's just harassing with this Reaper, scouting with it. It got 9 kills. Probably 4 of those are zerglings, maybe 5, perhaps even 6, but it doesn't really matter because it's given him a lot of scouting information. And more importantly, it's really put Idra on the back foot, and Idra is somebody who loves to be in his comfort zone. If you harass Idra, if you get him out of where he is strongest, which is sitting there in his base, macroing up, making incredible decisions, having really perfect mechanics, if you start to mess with that, if you start to throw a monkey wrench into his plans, then Idra really can't respond well, and either tries to all-in you prematurely or leaves from frustration. So using a Reaper that early is perfect, because it's something that Idra just has to sit there. He can't make drones, he has to make zerglings, and it's uncomfortable for him. And that's how you get Idra to go, because Idra's a major head case. Idra has no, like, sense of fortitude. He is not a strong person when it comes to dealing with problems. He's not a crisis manager. He is a win in perfect conditions kind of person. And so thus, you'll notice Idra right now, he has a spine crawler. Let's check the units tab. A spine crawler and 4 zerglings. Let's make 34 drones. That sounds like a great plan. Now what this does mean is that if you don't manage to get Idra out of his comfort zone, he's impossible to stop because he's just so good at this game. You can't beat him like that. We see Goody going for a Blue Flame Hellion drop. Cool early play. He's also not quite feeling safe to expand yet, so therefore he is keeping a CC in his base. It's never a bad play to do this, especially like you want to have your expansion up by the 8-minute mark. That's like the latest that you can have it up and still not be kind of behind. Then you want your third between 10 and 12 minutes. If you're Korean and Zerg, you want your third at 10 minutes. If you're an American Terran, 12 minutes is fine. You do want to have your command center down there by 8 minutes. Everything before 7 minutes is a fast expand. Everything after 8 minutes is sort of a play from behind play. And we see Idra waiting for... Goody waiting for the cover of this Blue Flame Hellion drop with which to expand. Idra taking his third. He now has 9 zerglings, so it's a safe number, it's fine. Pardon me, he's making lair, not his third. This is sort of odd to see Idra this behind on his third, but he's kind of worried about these Blue Flame Hellions. These Blue Flame Hellions already doing quite a bit of damage. Then they run back up into the medevac. Oh my gosh, that was a big miss micro by Goody there. He could have saved that third Hellion. And it's a Hellion for 2 Zerglings. Bad trade. You don't want to make it. Hellions, though, are some of my favorite units in the game. They're fast. They're great harassers. They're super cheap, and you can mass them really quickly. I think Blue Flame Hellions in a composition never hurt you. They're not quite as versatile as Marines, but I think they're better situational units. I think they do their job better than Marines do. Marines are supposed to sort of be a Band-Aid unit, and if you already have a Band-Aid units, or specifically you don't have any Band-Aid units in your composition, and that's the point like it is with the mech push. Mech pushes, all the units are specialized. Tanks are the damage dealers that do better the more of them you have. Thors are your anti-air, and you're just all-around powerhouse units. Hellions are your anti-light. Hellions are better at anti-light than Marines are, and thus if you're going in a composition that already is mech, you don't want to make Marines because Hellions gain advantages also from tanks. We see Goody moving out with a second mech push, pardon me, a second Blue Flame Hellion drop. Meanwhile, Idra's putting down a Baneling Nest and not getting any upgrades, just getting a pretty looking evolution chamber and a beautiful spire. This is perhaps the most common Zerg build, and certainly the one that was most common maybe 3 months ago, which is Ling Bling Muta. Wingling Muta is hard to stop because you have a lot of fast units. You have a lot of units that are good at harassing. For example, Banelings are great in drops. They're some of the most fun ways to play. Play them in customs or even on the ladder, guys. It's super fun. Goody doing something I love. Double Armory. Come on, Goody. You have more than enough money. Do it. Click them. Click them. Oh, come on, Goody. You're so fucking stupid. In the meantime, however, Goody is choosing instead to lose a Hellion drop. Make the frickin' upgrades. There you go. So we see this is the slight disadvantage Goody has, but he's so solid, and he's so good with his like actual unit composition, and he's so good with timings, and he knows his build so well, and he's a great all-around player who understands this game well, and so he can survive on having bad APM. Players like him and White Draw are, in my opinion, some of the most fun to watch, because even though they aren't these sort of Korean style super perfect mechanics, super just obliterate you with their amazing multitasking ability, they still manage to win at like really high levels. White Raw beat Boxer in a show match in Brood War. That didn't happen. That just wasn't something that occurred. It wasn't a possibility. And White Raw did that. And Goody, I mean, Goody's probably one of the three best foreigner Terrans. I mean, Goody could be working over in Korea. That's just awesome. Idra has taken his third very well. He has not yet gotten Baneling speed. Idra is floating a little bit in mins, but that's what happens when you're Zerg going Wingling Muta. We look at the units tab, we see Idra has 62 drones. Most likely he's going to stop around 70. That's where Zerg players stop and then just powerhouse you. That was sort of Idra's specialty, and he was so strong in beta with it. He was one of the first like really good players to switch over to StarCraft 2. And Idra, let's face it, Idra was kind of a mediocre player in Brood War. Idra was one of the first, but he was still a foreigner playing in Korea, so that does mean that he was pretty good. But on the pro scene, he was okay. Same with MC, actually. The only really great pro who is still great today is Nesty. The games have somewhat dissimilar skill sets. In this game, it's more important that you, for one thing, the game's younger, and the game also, it's not nearly as micro-intensive. Some of those incredible microers are no longer in the game that well. I mean, think about it. When's the last time you heard anything great about Marine King? Sure, he's in Codas still, but there are a bunch of people in Codas. Codas has a really weird system of advancement. We see Idra coming in, doing some nice harass there, taking out the reactor. But if he allows Goody to get too many of these Thors are amazing units. I've been doing a little bit of research into this, and I have found something really cool. Immortals and Thors, if you get a large enough number of them, they are almost uncounterable on the ground. Because the way it works is, these units are countered by a lot of small units that, because they deal so much damage. Look at that. Thor with one upgrade deals 66 damage to ground. Immortal with one upgrade deals like 50 damage to, or Immortals with no upgrades deal like 50 damage to Armored. So therefore, generally the wisdom has been, you hit a Thor with a bunch of Zerglings, they're gonna overkill almost all of them. There's sort of like no, and then 8 Zerglings are gonna deal more damage to the Thor than the Thor can deal 8 Zerglings the amount of time it takes to kill the Thor. Pretty smart thinking, right? However, what happens is that when the Thors get into the 6 to 8 range, and the same thing with Immortals when they get to the 8 to 10 range, there isn't anywhere left to attack. You only can attack like 1/4 of a Thor before you run into another Thor. So you can't actually get surrounds, and the Thors there doing this weird little dance. You can't get surrounds, which means that there's not enough surface area to let their counters do their thing. So this is a really cool thing that allows you to just get a critical mass of Thors or Immortals and really deal damage on the ground. And it's this dynamic, cool style. We now are going to see what happens when 17 Mutalisks fight against 3 Thors. The Mutalisks run away. So right now, if I am Goody, for one thing, bam, killer SCV production. That's a great number to have. Even at this stage of the game, that's really strong. If we look at the upgrades, Idra has 0-1 upgrades and 0-1 air upgrades. Idra only has attack upgrades. He's not going for beefy units, which means if you don't let Idra get up onto this scary hive tech, and if you push right now, if you're Goody, this allows you to really start dealing damage, because Idra has crap combat units. These mutas can deal damage in your mineral line, which Goody is responding very well by putting up many a turret. However, at this point, there are so many mutas, you can just destroy them with turrets. But Goody is moving out with an unbelievably scary push. These Hellions are going to do great against the Zerglings. He only has 2 Infestors so far. And let's face it, spine crawlers, let's watch how much this melts to unsieged tanks and Thors. Plus Idra, or plus Goody has a bunch of SCVs right there. So these mutas, these zerglings, although these zerglings are going to do a great counterattack, but that's the cool thing about Hellions, you can pretty easily pull them back, but at the same time it looks like we're going to have something awesome occur, folks. We're going to have a base race. Goody is producing Thors and Hellions and Hellions and Thors and Thors and Hellions and Thors. And so we see Goody pushing forward into Idra's natural. What can Idra do right now? This is a problem a lot of Zergs have, is especially going against mech. With Ling Bling Muta against Marine Tank, you can beat it. It can be done. But against mech, you can't go for this harassment-oriented style. Even though it does address the immobility of the Thors, if you're not a good enough harasser to actually kill them, then you get into this terrible, terrible trouble of a huge mech army on your door and you don't have any combat units. We see that these tanks are in a brutal position. They're between the Zerg's rally points. This means that the Zerg can't muster all of his forces at one time. However, at the same time, the Lings of Idra have ravaged the third and natural of Goody. Idra is losing overlords, but at the same time, Goody, this is the strongest his push is going to get for the foreseeable future. We see some great fungal ghosts going down. We see a +2 melee attack just trying to be chrono boost, or try. Yes, please, I wish I had chrono boost. These mutas cannot do anything with this many Thors here. We see these SCVs paying for their weight in gold, protecting these Thors. However, that was the last Hellion of Goody. He doesn't have any more Hellions in this competition, but doesn't matter. We see a lot of mutas trying to come in, just trying to do anything to hold the high for Idra. If this Greater Spire gets out, then that might be able to do something, but at the same time, Thors are better against Broodlords than people expect, especially if you have Hellions to support and you can unseat your tanks. These mutas are trying to go in for a counterattack, but no! The mutas are misclicked! Oh my god, he's losing so many mutas, but at the same time, I'm gonna kill our fungal growth on the tanks. He's trying to just move in and do as much damage as he can to these tanks. Really what he needs now is Neural Parasite, and E.G. Idra has left the game. Wow. Oop, sorry about that, guys. An excellent game, showing the raw power of a mech style. If you allow your opponent to get this army and you have a harassment-based army, you just can't deal with it. It's too strong. It's too much. So, guys, that was EG's Idra versus ESC's Goody. I love Goody quite a bit. I think he's a really cool player, and I think you guys should check him out more. I'll be trying to bring more games of him on my channel, and I have some more Idra games as well. Idra's been playing very well lately, and we saw there this cool back-and-forth action, and we also saw that the dangers of being a harass-oriented Zerg. You'll notice that Idra was doing great harass. We look at the units lost. Actually, why don't we go to that? Look, Goody killed way more workers, but why don't we go back to here, before the push? Doo-ba-doo-doo. Is this before the push? Yes, this is before the push. Oh, yeah. Idra's doing great amounts of harass here. He's killed so many things. And Goody just doesn't have the Thors to support this. And so Idra moves in, and he does so much great harass. He keeps complete mech control, keeps Goody in his base. He keeps trying to deny Goody his third. Idra has his third up. Idra's allowed to tech. He's doing so much good stuff. But he goes for harassment army. And then, when units that aren't vulnerable to him, like the entire point of the reason that Ling Bling Muta sort of countered Marine Tank, was that there was a lot of stuff in Marine Tank that was vulnerable to a part of the Lings and the Blings and the Mutas. The Marines were vulnerable to the Banelings. The tanks were vulnerable to the Zerglings and to the Mutalisks. And what this meant is that if you could just separate the army, perhaps with harassment with these mutas, you could then rush in with your Zerglings, surround the tanks, and then the Marines would be absolutely helpless against the Banelings unless you had some killer splits. But when it's just like, oh, I can just pull back my Thors, and then I have a bunch of Hellions and siege tanks at your base, and then if you actually try to attack me, you can't, or then when I actually attack you, you can't do anything because I have enough Thors to counter your mutas. You get this, you get this very awful feeling as Zerg because you played well. You haven't played poorly, and it feels like imbalance, but it's just you playing the wrong style against a mech player. You can't go for mutas when this guy's getting this many Thors. Now, that's not to say if you have like 6 tanks and 1 Thor, get mutas, because you can just kill the Thor and then destroy all the tanks. But if you have a guy who's going for a strong composition that does go against these Mutalisks, you might have to, oh my god, God forbid, make a change. Switch away from mutas and maybe go into roaches and infestors. That's a much